Dr. S. Shankar is a professor, Department of Physics at Madras Institute of Technology, Anna University, Chennai. His area of specialization is solid-state physics. He has guided more than 10 PhD scholars. He has published more than 50 national and international research papers. He has 28 years of teaching experience.
Welcome to UGC lecture series in physics. Today we are going to see about the magnetic properties of materials and some fundamental aspects of this vast subject. The objectives of the present lecture is to study about the magnetic field around magnets and the magnetic moment of a given magnet and origin of such magnetic moments, then types of magnetism and materials which are classified based upon the collection of such magnetic moments and their behavior. First, we see certain aspects of the discovery of magnetism. The history is very interesting in fact, and before 2000 years actually people discovered some magnetic materials which were attracting metals like iron and so on, and magnetite, that is Fe3O4, was first discovered by China and then ancient Greece people. It was called as a lodestone, and they have found that these materials always align along a longitudinal direction when allowed to rotate freely. This property of lodestones allowed for the creation of compasses 2000 years ago, which was the first known use of the magnet. Then in 1263, Pierre de Méricourt mapped the magnetic field of a lodestone with a compass. He discovered that magnetic had two magnetic poles, namely North Pole and South Pole. Then in 1600s, William Gilbert, a physician of Queen Elizabeth I, concluded that Earth itself is a giant magnet. Then in 1820, Danish physicist Hans Christian Ørsted discovered an electric current flowing through a wire can cause a compass needle to deflect, and shown that magnetism and electricity were related. In 1830, Michael Faraday, a British scientist, and Joseph Henry, American, independently discovered that a changing magnetic field produces a current in a coil of wire. Faraday, who was perhaps the greatest experimentalist of all time, came up with the idea of electric and magnetic fields. He also invented the dynamo, that is a generator of electricity, and made major contributions to chemistry, and also invented one of the first electric motors. In 19th century, James Clerk Maxwell, a Scottish theoretical physicist, mathematically unified the electric and magnetic forces. He also proposed that light was electromagnetic radiation. Then in the late 19th century, Pierre Curie discovered that magnets lose their magnetism above a certain temperature, which is well known now as and became known as the Curie point. In the 1900s, scientists discovered superconductivity. Superconductors are materials that have a zero resistance to a current flowing through them when they are at very low temperature. They also exclude magnetic fields, and this effect is well known as Meissner effect, which makes the magnetic levitation possible. In fact, These superconductors are perfect diamagnetic materials, as they are called as. Then the origin of magnetism in solids can be understood as follows. A moving electric charge macroscopically or microscopically is responsible for magnetism, and the origin of magnetism has got three sources. One is nucleus spin, the other is spin of the electrons, then orbital motion of electrons. So, these are the three sources or origins through which magnetism evolves. And with regard to spin of electrons, so magnetic moment resultant from the spin of a single unpaired electron is called as Bohr magneton. Then we see what is dipole now, that is magnetic dipole. Easiest way to think of a magnetic dipole is as a result of a current flowing in a miniature wire leads naturally to a picture of electron currents in atoms. This results in a magnetic dipole moment M defined by a current I and a vector area A. Schematic diagram is given here to understand about how a magnetic moment is developed. Here we have a circulating electron or a current, circulating current. Then we have a magnetic moment developed along this axis, and this is of course taking an atom as an example with one electron revolving around a nucleus. This is about the orbital motion, and here we consider spinning motion. A single electron can spin about its own axis, and a similar effect arises here, and this is the magnetic moment due to spinning motion, and this is a magnetic moment due to orbital motion. And in this case we write the magnetic moment to be equivalent to current flowing through this circular orbit multiplying the area of this orbit. That is, I is looping current, A is the area of the current loop. We have certain properties for the magnetic materials, basic properties like strength of the magnetic interaction and so on. Now, the strength of the magnetic interaction is defined by so called mu naught, which is known as the permeability of free space. Mu naught has a value of 4 × 10⁻⁷ Henry per meter. The unit of B, which is actually called as the magnetic flux density, is Tesla, and this B and mu are quite related. We will see in later slides. The energy of a magnetic dipole M in a uniform magnetic induction field B or magnetic flux density B is given by this U equal to minus M dot B, because M and B both are vectors. So, we take a dot product, then negative of this dot product is equivalent to the magnetic energy of the magnetic dipole present in a magnetic flux density or magnetic induction field. Then, because of their interaction with the applied field, the magnetic moment is also undergoing a torque and angular motion, and so the torque on a magnetic dipole M in a uniform magnetic induction field B is given by M cross B. If you take cross product between the two vectors M and B, then what we get is the torque, magnetic torque and the magnetic moment. Then a scalar field can be used to generate forces, which are usually vector fields, and so in general the force F can be described by the gradient of a scalar field U. So, we can take this F equal to minus grade U or F equal to minus gradient of M dot B. So, this is a magnetic force experienced by the magnetic dipole moment M in the induction field B. The force F on a magnetic dipole M in a non-uniform magnetic induction field B is given by simply minus gradient of this U. I mean, there is no much difference between this field and this field, with the only difference that this can be taken to be, this is minus grade M dot B and this is minus grade U, but in principle there is no much difference between these two. Now, force due to magnetic field upon an electric charge Q, which is subjected to the magnetic induction field B. This was worked out by Lorentz, and this is known as Lorentz magnetic force. This is given by the charge multiplying the cross product of the velocity, linear velocity of the charge moving in a magnetic induction field B, that is F equal to Q into V cross B, where F is the force experienced by the charge and Q is a charge on the particle, this is scalar, and V is the velocity of the particle related to the field, and B is the magnetic flux density. These are all vectors. Now, flux density B is in fact the response of the medium to the applied magnetic excitation H, and H is also often called as the applied magnetic field, and the relationship is defined by the magnetic permeability mu such that B equal to mu H, and B and H are in principle having the same sort of an origin, but they are related by this magnetic permeability of the medium. In vacuum, this mu is a constant which we had seen earlier, and so this is denoted by B suffix 0 given by mu 0 H, where mu 0 is a permeability in a vacuum and its value is again given as 4.10⁻⁷ Henry per meter or Tesla meter per ampere. Unit here are certain aspects of the unit. T refers to Tesla, and 1 Tesla is actually 1 volts second per meter square. All these things are related to each other. Then, each small volume d tau of a magnetized material will possess a magnetic dipole moment, differential magnetic dipole moment dm. So, this is elementary magnetic moment corresponding to the elementary volume, and magnetization by definition is given as the magnetic dipole moment per unit volume. So, capital M is denoting the magnetization, and from this definition M is written as dm by d tau. Unit is actually ampere per meter. Then there are certain other quantities also like magnetic susceptibility. We have permeability seen earlier, and let us see what are their actual physical meanings now. In electromagnetism, permeability mu is the measure of the ability of a material to support the formation of a magnetic field within itself. Hence, it is a degree of magnetization that a material obtains in response to an applied magnetic field. And what about magnetic susceptibility? This is denoted by the symbol chi, and susceptibility actually is coming from the Latin word, and the meaning is receptive. It is denoted usually by chi symbol. This is a measure of the magnetic properties of a material. The susceptibility indicates whether a material is attracted into or repelled out of a magnetic field, which in turn has implications for practical applications. Now, something about the magnetization of materials. Now, in presence of a magnetic material, there will be two contributions to the total magnetic induction field B in the material. And the two contributions are, one is B current denoted by BCUR, and the other is B material. This is due to the material itself. Now, B current is B due to current elements in the material, which is given by mu naught multiplying the applied magnetic field, and B material is due to magnetic material itself and is a resultant of the magnetization acquired by the material. So, magnetization is M, and in a similar manner we write this B material also as mu naught M. So, that the total B becomes mu naught H plus mu naught M. Now, we define the magnetic susceptibility chi as chi equal to M by H, that is the ratio of M to H. So, that B equal to mu naught H plus mu naught chi H. Here we divide and multiply by H in the second term and substitute chi for M by H. So, we get this one. So, that H can be taken out commonly and work out mu naught into 1 plus chi multiplying H on the right side. So, that we write commonly as in an abbreviation mu H, where mu is taken for mu naught into 1 plus chi, and again we abbreviate this 1 plus chi as mu with a suffix R, which represents or which is called as the relative permeability of the medium with respect to vacuum. So, mu R is 1 plus chi and chi is M by H. So, these are all certain basic quantities which are used for describing magnetic interaction. Now, different types of magnetic materials. These different types of magnetic materials are actually classified based on the nature of the response of the materials to the applied magnetic field, or equivalently based on their susceptibility values. The classifications are diamagnetic materials, paramagnetic materials, ferromagnetic materials. Diamagnetism. So, diamagnetism is a fundamental property of all matter, although it is usually very weak. It is due to the non-cooperative behavior of orbiting electrons when exposed to an applied magnetic field. Diamagnetic substances are composed of atoms which have no net magnetic moments, that is, all the orbital shells are filled with electrons and there are no unpaired electrons. So, what is the significance of this statement? Actually, when a shell is filled totally with the electrons, then the total number of electrons in a shell or in an orbit will be even number, and it is known that equal number of positive spin or positive moment and negative moment both will be there, so that they cancel each other, and so net magnetic moment arising from a given shell is 0. However, when exposed to a field, a negative magnetization is produced, and thus the magnetic susceptibility of such materials is negative. If we plot M versus H for such diamagnetic materials, we see like this: chi is negative, that is, diamagnetic susceptibility is negative, and if H is this and M is this, then it goes to the negative quadrant like this, because M equal to chi H, when chi is less than 0, we have M negative. Then chi, of course, is a constant, and therefore chi versus temperature. This also we will study later while studying in a more detailed manner about diamagnetism with some theories. We will see how chi varies with temperature. These two types of plots, that is M versus H and chi versus T, are important to understand the nature of behavior of the materials. This we will study in detail later, but the result is that chi varies with the temperature in a constant manner. That means chi is independent of this temperature. Then paramagnetism. This is a class of materials in which some of the atoms or ions in the materials have a net magnetic moment due to unpaired electrons in partially filled orbits. So, when an orbit is partially filled, then it may have even number of electrons or odd number of electrons. Then when it is having odd number of electrons, then there will be unpaired electrons left out in the orbit, and such electrons will have their magnetic moments orienting along some direction without being compensated by the negative direction magnetic moment, and these will all agglomerate, or these will all interact cooperatively, contributing to the paramagnetism in presence of a magnetic field. So, one of the most important atoms with unpaired electrons is iron. However, the individual magnetic moments do not interact magnetically, and like diamagnetism, the magnetization is zero when the field is removed. This is because the electrons are arbitrarily traveling, and these are the so called itinerant electrons, and so their magnetic moments along one direction is cancelled by the equal concentration of the magnetic moments along the opposite direction, along whatever direction that we take, whether positive x direction or negative direction, and so on. So, they equally cancel each other along both the directions, or in other words, we say that the magnetic moments are isotropically distributed in the absence of any external magnetic field, and so they cancel each other. So, the magnetization is zero when the field is removed. So, in the presence of a field, there is now a parallel alignment of the atomic magnetic moments along the direction of the field, resulting in a net positive magnetization and positive susceptibility. And this positive susceptibility, of course, is a weak one. For diamagnetic materials, although we see that chi is negative, the value, the magnitude of chi is very feeble or very weak in fact. Now, a similar plot for M and H, M versus H and chi versus T. And M by H ratio here is again a constant with a positive slope. The value of the slope will be very small in fact. Chi versus T, if we take, then chi is found to be proportional to 1 by T, or inversely proportional to the temperature in the absolute scale, and so it varies like this. So, at high temperatures naturally chi decreases and goes to 0 in fact, which implies that the effect of magnetic field tends to vanish at high temperature because of thermal excitation, and the thermal excitation tends to reorient the electrons along all directions possible, and hence we again have an isotropic distribution of the magnetic moments, or at least the material or the electrons tend to have isotropic distribution at high enough temperatures, so that chi goes 0 and magnetism is lost. Then here is a schematic representation of the three types of chi behavior or B. In vacuum, of course, M is actually chi for vacuum multiplying H, and for diamagnetic material chi is negative. Therefore, this M versus H line for diamagnetic materials is lying below this vacuum line, and for paramagnetic materials it lies above vacuum line because chi is positive. Chi value is magnitude wise small here and also small here. So, we have a relationship between mu with mu naught and chi. So, mu equal to mu naught at 1 plus chi here. Chi M is actually for the material. Then about ferromagnetism. Unlike paramagnetic materials, the atomic magnetic moments in materials like iron, nickel, etc. exhibit very strong magnetic interactions. These interactions are produced by electronic exchange forces and result in a parallel or antiparallel alignment of atomic moments. These exchange forces are very strong and large in magnitude. These are of the order of thousands of Tesla, or approximately 100 million times the strength of Earth's field. If the atomic dipole moments are parallel, these materials are called as ferromagnetic materials. If these atomic dipole moments are antiparallel and have equal magnitude for the moments, then these are called as antiferromagnetic materials. These antiferromagnetic materials have finally almost zero or zero magnetic moments under any circumstance. Now, if the atomic dipole moments are antiparallel, but the magnitude of these magnetic moments in both the directions are different, then there will be a net magnetic moment along the direction of the larger magnetic moment orientation, and so we will have non-zero magnetic moment for such materials, and these are called ferrimagnetic materials, and all of them come under the same category of ferromagnetic materials. Here we have a schematic representation of how the magnetic moments are aligned in the material. So, this is for paramagnetic. So, for paramagnetic we have random orientation of the magnetic moments or spin magnetic moments, and for ferromagnetic materials these magnetic moments are aligned parallelly like this. And in antiferromagnetic materials we have antiparallel alignment, that is alternate spins are aligned along same direction and the next alternate spins or magnetic moments align along the exactly opposite direction, so that if we have totally even number of moments then they cancel each other, and if we have odd number then we have one magnetic moment unpaired or uncancelled, and so that will be contributing to the magnetic moment, and this value, resultant value will be very, very feeble or minimum or negligible in fact. Then for ferrimagnetic case, it is a combination of this and this. So, here the magnetic moment along one direction will be small in magnitude compared to the magnetic moment along the other direction, so that the net field along this down direction is much lesser than the net magnetic moment along the upper direction. So, this is about ferrimagnetic materials. These are all the schematic representation of spin magnetic moment alignments, and here we have type of materials, magnetism and their typical values, orders and so on. And here one thing to say is superconductor is mentioned. This is also coming under this diamagnetic material, but this is a perfect diamagnet, so that susceptibility is the lowest maximum value -1. And here we have a table of values to or units and conversion factors in fact to compare and calculate. And here we have different materials, diamagnetic materials and paramagnetic materials, and their susceptibility values. These are all negative but very small, 10 power minus 5, 4, etc. orders. Here same 10 power minus 5, 4, etc. orders, but with positive values for paramagnets. Now, coming to the summary, we have seen basic magnetic properties and their origin, and magnetic moments and their alignments for different types of magnetic materials have also been studied. And For diamagnetic and paramagnetic materials, in particular, MH properties and susceptibility variations have also been studied. Now, a few questions to ponder into. First one is, what are the sources of magnetic moments in a solid? Second, why should the susceptibility of diamagnetic materials be negative? And third one is, distinguish between antiferromagnetic and ferrimagnetic materials. Thank you for your patient listening.